figured that since I was going to work on this anyway, that you might all appreciate a video on how I did it. So this is Sylvie's sword from the Loki TV series, and my dad 3D printed it. And he printed it in about 4 pieces. So you can see the little gaps for the different sections where it's all put together. So I'm going to fill each of those gaps with this wood filler. I'm going to sand it down, and then I'm going to paint it with this silver acrylic, which will be handy because it's already silver for the handle. But I'm still going to go over it because I'm going to have wood filler in here, and I'm going to have to sand down all of this part over here. And yeah, I mean, you can just see some of the little spots I just want to clean up, and then we're going to weather it too. So the handle is going to be silver. This part is all going to be like a bronzy color. I don't know if you can see it in there. I don't really want to necessarily go with the gold, but maybe I'll mix them a little bit. But I go more bronze than gold. And then this, it's hard to tell from some of the photos what color this is. Sometimes it looks kind of silver, sometimes it looks kind of greenish. And I don't think you ever really get a good shot of Sylvie's sword. I'm going to watch the series while I'm working on this, so we'll see for sure. But I think what I'm going to do is do a mixture of kind of this green metallic and the silver and do it there. So then it'll still be kind of a silver, but it'll have more of that kind of Loki color to it, a little bit more detail. And like I said, from what I can tell, you don't ever really see it in good lighting to see what her sword looks like. So I think I have a little bit of freedom to do whatever I want. So here it is so far, and I will show you some steps as I go along. All right, so what I'm gonna do first is take this Pro Bond wood filler, and let's see, it's just a sticky mess kind of stuff, and then I'm going to use it to fill in the holes on my sword. And then once all this dries, I will sand it all down and everything. But I'm just going to use this to kind of fill in this gap so it doesn't, look like a gap anymore. And then since I don't want this filled in, I'm going to actually use these tiny knitting needles and kind of clear it out of those holes so that it doesn't fill that, it only fills this gap that I want. Alright, so now I've got all of the wood filler into the sword. So it's wrapped around, and I've cleaned up the sections, tried to maintain some of the shapes under it so it didn't completely fill them in. And now I'm going through and sanding. So I'm trying to clean it up. It's getting a little bit smoother here. You can still kind of see that line. I might go over this bit again because this was probably one of the bigger gaps and one of the more noticeable areas. I'm not as worried about it here, and this one was pretty tight. But this one, it's on the blade, so I want to try to get this one as smooth as I can. So I'll probably go over it again. But yeah, I'm just sanding with this paper, and then I'm going back over it and just trying to clear out the gaps as much as I can. So I think it's looking pretty good so far. All right, now all of those bits where the pieces of the sword are connected are now all full of wood filler, and everything is all sanded down. This one, like I said, it's still kind of a little bit obvious. It's this part moves a little bit, but I'm not that worried about it because all this is gonna get painted, and I think it'll look fine. It's not gonna stand out as looking really bad, and if it does, I'll just fix it. This one is almost perfect, and then this one actually turned out a lot nicer than I was expecting it. It feels pretty smooth. So, time for paint. So now I'm going to paint the sword bit first with this basic acrylic silver paint. Let's see how it goes. So here is the sword so far. I know it looks really close on camera, it looks really close in person, but this is silver paint over this, so it's kind of evening out where the wood filler was. Yeah, you can still see the divot a little bit, but I don't really care. But what I'm doing while I paint, so I go over it, you know, with the paintbrush, put the silver paint. I'm getting it a little bit wet so that it smooths on a little bit smoother because the paint is really thick acrylic paint. And then after I paint it, I go back over it like I did when I was doing the wood filler and tracing out all of the letters so that they're all still sticking up. So it actually almost looks like they're kind of actually cut in there. If you can see it a little bit with the layers of paint being pushed out of the way. I don't know, I think it looks a little bit more authentic, and now all the details are still standing out, and I'll go over them with like some black and stuff and fill them in a little bit when I get to the weathering step. But I do think this helps a lot, because if I just paint it, well, this side only has one layer, the other side has two. If I just paint it, it gets filled in quite a bit with the paint. So this looks great. I'm so excited. And after I do another coat on this side, I'll start working on painting this. All right, here's the first few coats of the bronze on the handle. I think it looks amazing. I haven't on every layer cut out like I did over here, but I did on this final layer. So I actually do think it helps a lot. I didn't like trace out the details in the boar's head up here, but I did in the design. And I think this is starting to kind of blend a little bit. I don't think that looks too bad. I think it'll help too that it won't look like such a center line when this is a different color. But yeah, this is this side. I haven't actually painted the other side yet, but here's how the sword is looking so far. And this is the paint that I'm using for that. Now, I'm working on the part where I had to actually mix the paint. Sorry that Pixel's barking in the background. But I have a mixture of this metallic black, the metallic like teal, some blue and yellow, and a silver. So there's the black, silver, teal, the blue, and I think it was the last yellow that I've kind of mixed together. It's sort of got this shade, so it's definitely off from the silver. Trying to get it kind of a jewelly sort of color. I'm really not, I don't know, I'm not sure. I kind of like it. I almost feel like it needs to be a little bit darker. I don't know, I kind of like it. It's growing on me. I like teal, if you can tell. So there we go. I'm going to paint this little bit and then I'll do a few more coats on both of those. But there is the rest of the finished handle and the blade. So I think it's all looking pretty good. All right, so now I think it's time to start weathering this thing, which I think it looks pretty amazing just the way it is. But you know, Sylvie's been using her sword for a while and it's kind of worn out. So what I have is, it's not this, I don't use like my really thick, nice acrylic paint for this. I've got like the bottles that you can get from a craft store where it's a little more runny of just plain black paint. And then my paintbrush is like really wet. And like I get the paint like really, really damp. Like so it's not thick at all. Woo! So I'm trying to do this with one hand and show you with the other. So, all right. So I've got like super wet paintbrush, and then I'll kind of go over where I want the weathering to be, like in those letters. And then I'm going to take my towel and just kind of, basically, for a while, it kind of looks like I'm just like rubbing all of it out, but it's just a matter of layering it on there, getting it on there, and then kind of just rubbing it out a little bit. So I'll just do this over and over again, everywhere where I want it, and slowly the weathering will start to pick up. Now you can see where a little bit of that one stayed in there, in that crease and on those letters. So I'm just going to do this all over the sword bit and on the handle and on both sides, and I'll show you when it's done. So another trick, as you can see, I've gotten pretty far on this so far, is if it's wiping off too much when you're just using the super watered down paint, I mean, still have your paintbrush a little bit wet, but get some of the paint on there, and then you can see it's a lot thicker. Kind of get it into the holes where you want it, and then use a very wet towel. Like, it's dirty. I mean, make sure the towel's dirty because you don't want to wipe off all the black. But it's definitely damp. I've stuck it in my little water thing, and then just wipe it off with the damp towel. And I think sometimes that works a little bit better too. And you don't really necessarily want it solid black in there. I mean, if I wanted it solid black, I would just paint, like, you know, go in with a pen or something. So like on here, you can see when I was wiping it off, I just stuck my nail in there and kind of wiped out some of the black. So it's not solid through there. So I'm just kind of trying to get down into some of the holes and get some of the black back out. Just so it looks worn and weathered, but not painted again. Do be a little bit careful, because like right there, I scratched a little too hard and I scratched off some of the silver. So I'm gonna have to go back and kind of put some more silver in there. Yeah, there it is so far. I'm gonna keep going. I'm going to, on here, try to get some of the black, like, into these bins a little bit. And it'll just be a matter of just layering the paint a lot. Getting it into the... I just want to get a little bit of black into every little crevice, like where it would get dirty. And like in the ear here and around, maybe on the eye. Definitely here where it's still like a little messy from being printed, and on the underside. So I kind of did a little bit of it. You can see where the blade connects to the handle, where it's a little dirty and a little black in that crease. So that's kind of my plan, to keep going, just to dirty it all up, all over. And there it is, fully weathered. The only last thing that I need to do is to spray a clear coat over it to protect it, because if touching it, the paint will chip and come off on your hands. So here it all is. I think I'll let it sit overnight just to make sure that everything is fully dried before I do spray it. But I think it looks amazing. The weathering process is probably the messiest part. All these paper towels, it's all over the table. It is all over my hands. So I need to go wash my hands for sure. Just a lot of layer of paint, wipe it off. Layer of paint, wipe it off. With all of these paper towels that are now just filthy. but it looks amazing. So excited to actually use it. Thanks for watching. Here's the finished project. It still hasn't been sprayed with a clear coat, so I'm trying to be careful while I'm handling it. But I'm outside, so you can kind of, it's not a very bright day, but at least you can see it in a little bit of natural light. I just dropped it, so all the pieces kind of separated, so, the gaps are still relatively filled in. I'm impressed. But there you go. That's how it fits nicely in my hand. I think the sword is a little bit smaller than Sylvie's. My dad printed it at 80%, so the original one was like way bigger. I think the person who made it said that they were just going for detail and not necessarily like the exact size. So while it's sitting on my hip, it might not be as big as hers. And while I'm waving it around, it might not, but it fits in my hand nice, and I think it's going to be a perfect prop. So thanks for watching. If you want to see any more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe and comment, and I'll see you next time.